So the name of the book, Strange Situation, is named after Mary Ainsworth's 20-minute laboratory procedure that has been done tens of thousands of times around the world with every kind of parent, every kind of child, even dogs, cats, chimps. What it's looking at is an attachment relationship between a child and a caregiver. And it can be a biological caregiver or an adoptive caregiver or even like a pet owner. So it's looking at that attachment relationship that happens in mammals, primates, and in human beings. And the reason why attachment exists is to keep us safe. And as human beings, our safety is dependent not just on whether or not we're going to be killed by that saber-toothed tiger, or whether or not we're going to, die of starvation, but whether or not we're going to live emotionally, whether or not we're going to actually feel felt, whether or not we are going to believe that we are seen. And that's one of the most beautiful things about us as human beings, is that we need that, we demand it. And when it doesn't happen, we'll keep looking for it. And so in the Strange Situation, because Mary Ainsworth did so much work in the home between mothers and children, looking at that really subtle relationship, she was able to come up with this 20-minute procedure where she could see the bones of connection in just 20 minutes in a series of comings and goings, particularly looking at the reunion of when a parent comes and relieves a child of the stress of having been left alone in a so-called strange situation. And so I've found that such an incredibly beautiful example of a genius mind being able to distill something so complex and unwieldy, and that inspires me deeply as a human being. And of course, love is strange. It's a strange situation. So that's the title.
And did you decide that you wanted to show us a clip of the Strange Situation, Bethany, or would you rather just describe it?
I thought it might be kind of fun. Sarah, do you think you can handle that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. If you wanted to start it at point 10, and let me just give you a little preface. So Mary Ainsworth is the developmental psychologist born in 1913, died in 1999. She is the inspiration for my book. She created The Strange Situation. And one of the reasons why I wrote this book is because A, I fell in love with her, and B, nobody knows about her. Attachment is considered a science that was developed by John Bowlby, who is a British gentleman, and she is always called his student, or if she's even mentioned at all. And so you'll hear in this video, which is pretty old, but you'll hear a very typical description of who Mary Ainsworth is. And I wanted to just give people a sense of what it's like for a baby and a caregiver to be in this strange situation room with the stranger, the baby, and the parent. And you'll see that the baby is playing, and then the stranger comes, and then the mother leaves, and the child is very distraught, which is considered completely normal for a secure baby to be sad when the parent leaves. But what we're looking for is what happens when the parent returns. Can the parent help the child get back to some kind of homeostasis, some kind of regulation, so that they can get back to playing? So I wanted you to just take a quick peek.
So what
Start at point 10. Yeah, perfect.
After conducting extensive observations of parents and children at home, a student of Bowlby's, Mary Ainsworth,
Sorry.
devised such a procedure called the Strange Situation, which places the child under some stress. It has become the most widely used, standardized way to assess the quality of a child's attachment to their caregiver.
So there, now go to 1.59. So that's just sort of the basic, when the baby gets there, and the researcher watches the baby, and then the parent leaves, and the stranger tries to soothe the baby, but with a secure child, that won't work, because the child wants that special relationship with the parent. And so we'll see what happens next.
stranger tries to comfort Lisa, but in vain. Lisbeth comes back into the room, and the camera records how Lisa reacts.
Lisa's fine. Thank you.
Now
Okay, you can. I could watch these all day, but I'm sure you all want to get back to this conversation. So, you know, one of the things that's really important about this is that we think that crying is bad, and actually crying is considered an attachment behavior. And if it's taken up with, you know, attention, then it's doing its job. And so when the parent comes back and the child is able to be soothed, that from an attachment perspective is a good thing.
You know, one of the things that I love about Strange Situation is that you show us that attachment is not what people think it is. Can you talk about that a bit?
Yes, well, that's a many-layered problem. The sort of crust of that problem is Dr. Sears and his so-called attachment parenting philosophy, which gave the popular culture a very false notion of what attachment is, starting with the fact that he really, I mean, I've read some of his fine print, and he really is essentially saying if we don't do these certain things, children won't be attached. And that's just, first of all, totally wrong. Every single one of us, except for in cases of extreme neglect, or, you know, babies who are raised in institutions and, you know, don't see the light of day, essentially, we are all attached to someone. Now, it may not be an optimal attachment, it may not be a so-called secure attachment, but our attachment relationships are functioning in various ways, and that's really important. So this whole doomsday scenario of, you know, if you don't wear a sling, breastfeed, co-sleep, if you let your kid cry, if you get it wrong, if you screw it up, your kid's, you know, going to be left in some like abyss of unattachment, whatever that even means. The whole thing is very it's very overwrought, and it's really in my opinion really shaming to women. And so that's problem number one. And then I would also say that when we think about attachment and we think about relationships in general, we so often think about the other. You know, like my relationship with you, Wednesday, is about how you are going to treat me. That's the nature of that relationship from one point of view. But attachment research and what I've gathered from it is really about understanding, you know, Mary said that attachment is an internal something, and it's a something that wants to work. It's like our breath, it's like our digestion. It functions, and it's inside of us. And so, you know, an attachment relationship is an attuned relationship, and the way that we create attunement is by attuning to ourselves.
I think that's such a huge contribution. One of the things you talk about when you're getting into this in the book is the way science is sometimes hijacked by ideology, and attachment parenting has been it's kind of hijacked by different, very conflicting ideologies. You did a beautiful job of showing us that. I want to talk about, or let you talk about rather, this current really strange situation we're all in at this very moment. You told me when I interviewed you the other day for something else that our attachment patterns are online at this moment. Our attachment systems are activated right now in this current strange situation.
Indeed, our attachment system is what's called a set goal behavioral system. The others are caregiving, affiliation, fear, sexuality. These are whole body and mind systems that function in our bodies. These are not ideas. These are fully functioning, you know, things that drive us. And the set goal piece is really important and really interesting. You know, a set goal of attachment is to Bowlby had originally said that it was to feel safe, to feel like we're not in danger. But then later researchers like Alan Sroufe, I don't know if he's here, that would be amazing. He and others changed it to feeling felt. So the set goal of our attachment system is to feel felt. And until we feel felt, like I said in the beginning, we will not stop. And this system comes online, particularly in times of danger. We're not always, our attachment system always exists, but it's not always in full gear. But when we are endangered, we are going to, we go into high alert. We're under threat. And so we want to be close to our attachment figures. So the fact that we're all here in this very strange situation with this very, very significant threat for all of us, who among us isn't terrified? We should be terrified. This is very scary. And so we're all really tenderized in that way. And the fact that we're all home with our children, it's kind of amazing. It's as it should be. And I know that I have noticed, and other people I've talked to have noticed that, when we ask each other, how are you doing? How are you doing? Everybody says the kids are great. Our kids are so happy, except for the teenagers who are, the older ones who have other needs that are really developing. The younger kids are generally doing really well. If the family's intact and, nobody's sick and that kind of, there's an enormous stress about job loss. And those are big ifs, I understand. But the fact that, we're all here in this strange situation with our kids is kind of perfect from an attachment point of view.